The worst year for a lot of us for our mental as well as physical health. So joining us this morning is best-selling author, coach, and fitness expert, Lisa Goldenthal.
Hello and welcome. I'm Lisa G, your host. You're at the top of your game, yet the game is changing faster than ever. Strategies that got you here aren't the ones that'll keep you here. The pressure is relentless, and the fear of obsolescence looms large. That's why I'm here. Welcome to the new podcast series, Disrupted: How to Be Gritty and Unlock Performance. This is your chance where I sit down with today's tops in business, mindset, wellness, and success to help you master disruption and thrive.
Thanks for coming, and I'll see you soon.
She's a 3-time Emmy Award-winning broadcaster who spent her career breaking barriers and inspiring others, from the sidelines of major sporting events to the boardrooms of corporate giants. Her insights have captivated audience worldwide. Now she shares her secrets to success in her upcoming book, Cultivating Audacity. Get ready to be inspired and empowered. I am so thrilled to introduce to the podcast and welcome Anne-Marie Anderson. Welcome.
Thank you so much. What an introduction. I'm all ready for this. We're going to dance our way through it, are we? I love it.
I like to have fun. I mean, when we're recording this now, it's very close to the weekend, but you guys are going to be watching this in the future. So let's jump in with a little bit of your story, and right with audacity, because it often, maybe has a negative connotation. Why would we want to cultivate that?
Right? And what's really interesting is it has a negative connotation in this country. We think of it as like cocky or brash. My sister-in-law's from Argentina, and she's like, it's the best thing ever to call somebody audacious. So we have Americanized audacity to mean something bad. So I looked it up, and audacity, the definition of it is to take bold, sometimes surprising risks. Now, Lisa, is that bad?
No, I'm
right?
Super audacious.
Yeah, but I don't know how we got that term. So of course we want to cultivate or grow the ability to take bold, sometimes surprising risks, because that's where the good stuff is. That's where the growth is in every process. And I think a lot of us, including me, because I grew up with my parents saying, oh, you have the audacity to ask that question. And I thought, okay, was that bad? Well, it turns out audacity is a great thing to have. And even if you're not necessarily born to be a risk taker, and even if you are, you can grow it. And it turns out to be incredibly helpful in creating a life you're excited to wake up to.
Well, I like your story. I read a little bit of your backstory about how you did some crazy, audacious things. And I really believe in that as a concept, because I feel like if you don't ask crazy, audacious questions, you don't get the life of your dreams. So how did you cultivate audacity yourself? And what were some of the risks you took?
Well, I think the big thing between any of us and audacity, right, are all the barriers, the fears, which in my keynote speaking, traveling the country, and then writing the book, it always comes down to one of 4 things: fear, time, money, or our inner critic who's chirping in our ear. So for me, fear was my biggest one, right? And the fears that we have are fear of failure, fear of being exposed, judgment, embarrassment. I mean, it could be a million different things. And so for me, I really had to recalibrate my relationship with rejection and kind of make friends with fear. Because Lisa, what do? We like push it down, right? We say, I don't want to feel fear. We'll push it away, this and that. And what happens is it doesn't go away. It pops back up at us, pops back up. So I invited in. I learned how to invite it in, which was terrifying, by the way. And I started doing audacious things. I was a producer at ESPN and decided I wanted to go on air, which was very uncommon, especially when you're already 10 years into your producing career. And I was terrified my first time on air that I was going to be exposed as being bad on television. Well, of course I was going to be bad on television. It was my first time on television. So it was a matter of accepting that. Now, my first time on television happened to be in 70 million homes. Because of a scheduling thing, they put me on ESPN2 my first time, which was unexpected. So my fears were choking me. And finally I said, look, no matter how bad it is, I'm probably not going to die destitute and alone. So if I catastrophize out of there, anything better than that was a win. And I just kept, once I failed, I used that as data and not something that was an endpoint for me. And it really worked throughout my life.
I just love the way you look at it as data, and I love the way, you can look at it as, am I going to die if I suck at it? And I love the way you embrace the suck, because when I first started podcasting 4 years ago, I did suck, but I kept at it. I've done 400 episodes, and the more I was just deathly afraid of public speaking. It was just like the worst thing ever. I don't know where it came from, but 8 years ago, I started to just face that thing down and do summits and interview people and make videos. And did they suck? Yeah. I mean, they suck.
Yes. Great. Great. Because each time that it sucked, you did it again. And
Right.
again and again. I was bad my first time, my second time, my 15th time, my 100th time. But good for you. You kept going and
Yeah.
you were in control, right? You were in control. You weren't letting the fear decide your moves. Good for you.
Yeah, well, I just think that you are so inspiring to my audience about pushing through our fears, because I really feel like we have all been through so much trauma in the last 5 years, and it doesn't come to an end. It's like disruptions aren't going anywhere. So I want you guys to fail forward, and it all sounds great to take risks, but people just have those fears of risk taking. So do you have any other advice you want to tell our audience about how you wanted, if you want something different, but you also want to feel safe, risks don't work out? But is there any other advice that you could give us on cultivating audacity?
Absolutely. I think that a lot of people think that staying the same is staying safe, right? But
Yeah,
if you want something different, then what staying the same does, it ensures that no growth is possible.
right.
No, there's zero chance for growth if you stay the same. And you want change. So why would you want to stay the same? And I think for a lot of people, it's like, well, wait, yeah, I want something good, but I need to make sure it's good first. Well, it is good because you're getting more direction and more information on it as you're going through. And there's just a couple other things that you need to think about when you're doing it in terms of, are you really putting time into it? And of course, nobody has extra time. None of us. We're all just scrambling all the time. I always say people with no pets, no kids, no plants don't have time. People with 4 kids, 2 jobs don't have time. It doesn't matter. Nobody has extra time. But what we do is we tend to put the things that are urgent ahead of our goals because they have to get done. It has
Yeah,
to be done, and it has to be done right now. My theory is this: anything urgent, almost anything urgent, can wait 15 minutes while you focus on important. Now, here's the difference between tasks that are urgent and tasks that are important. Tasks that are urgent have an immediate deadline. They usually can be ticked off your list pretty quickly, and they give you a sense of satisfaction when you do it, right? You paid the bill,
yeah,
you answered the email, you returned the text, all that. Things that are important, which are the things we're talking about that will move us forward closer to our values and vision and goals, they take more time, more thought. They may not have the impending deadline, but they have real consequences if we don't pay attention to them. Mostly that we're going to stay on that hamster wheel of urgent every day. So my theory is this: if you carve out little periods of time to put urgent aside, because it can wait 15 minutes, while you work on what's important, and you do that 4 times a day, you've got an hour towards your audacious goal. And Lisa, I'll tell you, the trick is I tried to do this originally by getting up an hour earlier. And at 4:30 in the morning, I was going to get up and get it done and all that. And I did that, and it sucked. I was
yeah,
exhausted. I was
yeah,
exhausted, and I thought, I don't want to not enjoy this. And that's when I started to carve out. My book was written in 15-minute blocks, because the kids needing dinner was not urgent. The email being returned was not urgent. My preparation for television could wait 15 minutes. I wouldn't put any further than that. But reprioritizing that, and what I call the urgency fallacy, has been a great help in creating the space to be creative for my clients and the people that I speak with.
I know that is wonderful, because people are always like, they give you that excuse, I am too busy. And we all have 24 hours in the day, the same 24 hours in the day. And if you can be a mom, an on-air newscaster, and write a book at the same time, that certainly just blows that excuse out of the water. So how can we prioritize our goals without sacrificing our well-being? Because for me, as a high performance executive coach, I really like to help people have like cultivate audacity in their life, but also at the same time not lose their health.
Right. And here's the thing that we do a lot of times, right? We try to do it all. And I talked about 4 barriers: fear,
Yeah.
time, and money. And I always call money times twin, because you have to manage it the same way. You have to know how much of it you have first, like where do you spend your time? Where do you spend your money? And then distribute it accordingly. So for someone like you, like me, who does this, keep in mind that money is also an exchange for
Yeah.
energy to do what you want to do. So we all have our money stories. Some people grew up without very much of anything. Some people grew up with just enough, but want to hold on to it super tightly. That was kind of me. We were fine financially, but it's because we held on to it so tightly. And I was exhausted trying to be a full-time keynote speaker, a full-time broadcaster, a full-time mom, and an author, until I finally realized I needed more energy. And so I
Yeah.
got some money to buy time by hiring an assistant who takes care of all the urgent tasks that can
Wow.
get checked off, but take up time. Contracts, prospecting, payment, all of that stuff. My fantastic assistant, Fabi, does, so that it gives me more time to focus on what's important: connecting with clients, cultivating relationships. Once I realized that time and money were twins, and I could create more energy to do what's important to me by spending a little bit of money,
Yeah.
changed everything.
I love that analogy of time and money being twins because one of my first business coaches, like 8 years ago, when I first started down this whole journey, was like saying you just have to have a virtual assistant. So here I am spending money to create a business, and then the fear comes up of I can't afford it. And
Right.
from what you're saying, you can't afford not to do it if it's going to create more time, which obviously we still have the same 24 hours in a day. So your story, though, getting back to that really inspired me when I heard about how you left for California when you had already the dream job that everybody else in the world really would love to have. Do you want to inspire our audience with a little personal tales of what you actually did? Because I'm inspired.
Oh, thank you. That was a big one for me. I was 26 years old working at ESPN, total dream job in Bristol, Connecticut. I was a producer and I was on the biggest sporting events in the world: the Olympic Games, heavyweight title fights, the Super Bowl, NBA playoffs. It was like Forrest Gump. Wherever the big story was, I was there. But I was unhappy. I was unhappy personally, not professionally. I was thrilled professionally. But I was 26 years old, working in snowy Bristol, Connecticut, didn't have any kind of a social life at all. And I came out to California to visit my brother. And I'm a beach volleyball player. He lives on the beach. People were playing volleyball in February. And I was like, what am I doing? And so I went to my boss and I said, hey, I'd like to be LA bureau producer. And he said, well, we already have an LA bureau producer. And I said, yeah, I know. That's what makes us so awkward. Kind of like that little laugh. And he tried to talk me out of it and said, listen, tell you what, if in 2 years we haven't made you LA bureau producer, then you can go. What will you have really lost? And I thought, well, 2 years in my
Right.
20s. And who knows? No time's guaranteed for any of us. And so I gave him my notice. And at the end of sports, I went to drive away. Robin Roberts, who I know a lot of your listeners know, she's the host of Good Morning America, is a good friend, and we work together. Robin was so panicked that she ran out to my car afterwards, my little 3-cylinder car, with a check for $250 because she was sure I was going to starve
Yeah.
because I
Oh
had
my
no
God.
plans. The only thing I knew for sure was that I wasn't going to shovel snow. That was it.
Yeah.
And when I arrived in Los Angeles 5 days later, after driving cross country, my boss hired me for a little bit of freelance work here and there. And shortly afterwards, put me on a contract. And by the end of that year, I doubled my salary. That was
Oh
a
my God.
lesson. That was such a lesson for me to
Oh my
make twice as much money and be able to put my little pager at the time on the net, play beach volleyball until my boss called. And then I would go to work. He knew where I was, what I was doing. I was happy. I was a better employee. I had a social life, and I did, I think, better work. It was revolutionary for me. After that, then the lid was off, and I was going to make decisions about the life I wanted, not just the job. It included my job, but what the entire life looks like.
That inspired me to no end. I mean, I too made that crazy move to California when I was younger and didn't really have a backup plan, but I've just always been that kind of person who just, when I was younger, just took risks. And
Yep.
my dad used to say I was like a cat and I would always land on my feet.
Yes, great. Great.
So I'm very inspired by your story. When I first started this podcast, I asked everybody, all my guests, how we can be unstoppable. And that story is unstoppable. So do you have any final unstoppable words you can leave us with?
Yes, I think when you're going to be unstoppable, when you're going to be audacious, it's important to make it public. And the way you do that is by gathering a front row. Front row is key to cultivating audacity. And your front row is made up of individuals who are going to push you and challenge you. I'm going to give you a tip. Your front row is probably not your mom, may not be your best friend, because they want you to stay safe. It comes from a good place, but they want you to stay safe. Your front row needs to be people who say, wait, you told me you were going to do this. How's that going? How far along are you on the way? When you do get those rejections and no's, and if you start to wallow for a moment, your front row is going to say to you, you've got this. That's just more information. Let's see, what do we learn from that? They can dive into it. What do we learn from that failure, perceived failure, or rejection, and work it through? Your front row is a key part of packing your parachute so you can jump. And I wouldn't do anything without my front row. You can have many different, I have a fitness front row, a professional front row, a personal front row. And I let them know, hey, you're in my front row. Here's what I want to do. And they know it. They're honored to be, right, chosen by somebody to be in the front row. I'm in their front row, and we keep tabs on each other. It's essential. And it's the best way to make sure that you do what you say you're going to do.
That is so powerful because accountability is everything, but you don't want anybody who's just going to say how great you are. Like you want people
No.
that are be real with you. And I want somebody like you in my front row. Where can we find more Anne-Marie Anderson?
Oh, thank you so much. I love being in your front row. You can find me at a bunch of different places. My website, annemarieanderson.com, has a lot of information. There's an E on the end of Anne. It's all one word there. And the same with cultivatingaudacity.com has more information about the book released January 1st. So that's lots of fun. I appreciate your support right now for that. And then you can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on X, either under the name Anne-Marie Anderson or Cultivating Audacity. I love having a big squad, big front row, and I love being in other people's front rows too, because once you create your life by cultivating audacity, you wake up with joy every day and everything seems possible.
Wonderful. Well, I'm so happy to have you in your front row and promote the book. So thanks for being a fantastic guest on WholeCEO with Lisa G.
Thanks for having me. I had a great time talking with you.